Hey there, hi there, ho there. I am Serena Hicks, and you are listening to The Serena Hicks Show, where we talk about love and money, all forms of love, self-love, neighborly love, love for your journey of entrepreneurship, love for the money you have, love for the debt you have, if you have any, love for your journey and experiences, learning how to make money, have money, steward money, donate money, receive money, love and money. That's it. We're going to talk about every intersection of and version of love and money. Welcome to the Love and Money Show. If you love it, tell a friend. I love you. I mean it. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Serena Hicks Show podcast YouTube channel. I am so excited to introduce my guest today. My guest today is a friend. We actually met at a bar in a Soho house in Austin. And if I remember correctly, we were raving about the movie Clueless. Do you remember that?
I remember.
That's how we met.
Absolutely.
That's how we
Totally.
met. Makes
100%.
sense. Makes sense. So if that's not interesting to you, this ain't your episode. But for everyone who just leaned in, I'm going to introduce you to Alison Acerra, who's a phenomenal human, also has all sorts of initials after her name, something about a nutrition and hormone health specialist. What do we got? An MS, an RDN, LD. I'm going to let Alison introduce herself because I will fuck it all the way up. And then we're going to talk about her fascinating, interesting life and journey through health and wellness. It includes a disordered eating past, which we get to discuss. Thank you. And Alison said something right before I was like, we have to start. And it's everything. It's everything that her health used to be somewhat linked to, I think in a way trying to fit in, and there was a little bit of pushy. And now it's just an act of love. Her health and wellness now come from a grounding of love. It's a way to take care of herself from a place of love. Like it's a completely different fuel source. And so whatever you're doing, turn it up, stop it, pay attention. Here we go. Alison, will you say hi and tell everyone about you, please?
Hey, Serena. So good to be here with you. Yes, Alison Acerra. I am based in Austin, Texas, and I am a registered dietitian by background. So I've been a RDN, registered dietitian nutritionist, for 20 years now, almost 2 decades, long time. And LD is licensed dietitian, which is a Texas state licensure. And I have a master's in clinical nutrition as well.
So you know stuff about nutrition?
Know some stuff, yeah. And I do specialize in hormone health and digestive health, primarily in women who are navigating the crazy journey to menopause and beyond.
I love that. I also love something that we've talked about, and also full disclosure, as per always, I get to work with Alison in the Boom Boom Room, and I've worked with her privately as well, which is how I know all of this stuff. Okay, so I don't know that we've said this in exactly one sentence, and stop me if I've completely misunderstood it, but that's not a word, I understand y'all. Misunderstand it, but there's the, there's more than just the nutritional component. There's an energetic component to our wellness. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because it's 2024 as we record this, and people who
Mhm.
listen to this podcast and watch this show in this community, we know their energetics. But I feel like especially licensed people so often still are like, no, no, it's just calorie in, calorie out.
Mm,
Nothing else matters.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, I think that there certainly are so many things that we know about what to do to support our health. And a lot of that is tangible. Maybe it's been studied. We have direct experience. We can kind of see it and feel it and taste it, whether it's a nutrition strategy or a movement strategy. And then there's a whole other world of unseen that that is absolutely playing a part in how we feel in our health and in our sense of well-being. And I think that, yeah, it's true that there are a lot of practitioners out there, right, who are focusing on just kind of these tangibles. And when we really think about the deeper layers, the energetics of our health and well-being, that's where I think it can get. There's a lot of depth there. There's a lot to explore. And we can think about how we want to approach our health from a place of, self-flagellation, self-hate. I'm not enough the way I am. I have to change my body. I have to manipulate it. I have to control it. It's not doing what I want it to do. Um, And then there's a way that we can approach our health from a place of, no, I get to feel incredible. I get to have incredible health. So I have the energy to do all the things that I want to do in this lifetime, whether it's, something from a professional standpoint, building a business, having incredible relationships, traveling the world, whatever it might be. And so I really encourage, my clients to really think about what is the intention that they're really coming with, what is the energy that they're bringing to their health and well-being, to their goals, and to how they're connecting to that, to their work.
I love how you explained it. I also love that you mentioned travel because I know that you have a summer of travel coming up.
I
Will you
do.
share a
Yeah.
little bit about that? And everyone, while you're listening, I want you to just pay attention to the energy in your body. Just notice if it blooms or not. What are you doing, Allison? Are you traveling at all? Say more.
I am traveling. Yeah, right now I'm actually in Greenport, Long Island, which is one of my favorite places to be. I grew up on Long Island, and so I'm here for a couple of weeks. And then I will be heading to Turkey. I'm going to be flying into Istanbul as of the early June. I'll be spending most of my time on the Aegean and by the beaches, and then I'll be heading to Crete and sort of do some Greek island hopping, and then I'll be heading to the Amalfi, south of Italy, as well as Sicily. So kind of wrapping up in Italy. So I'm super stoked.
And I love like you just
Yeah.
like start glowing and smiling. So if you're just listening to the audio and not watching the video, it's like this is what we mean by energetics. Like
Mhm.
even while you are here, a piece of you is also there and it's just entirely different. It's so good. Okay, will you please let's just jump right into it. You know this. I love your personal story. Are you
Mhm.
willing to share, please, how you were type A baddie at work, working for big bad companies? And I actually really love where you were like, and then this happened, and I knew everything needed to change. And to me, that was the beginning of who you are now. If you'll
Mm.
take us through that, because I know that also links to an early perimenopause.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I had started probably my type A. I knew I was a type A from early on, right? I went straight from undergraduate into my master's work, ended up, going into a year-long internship program to become a dietitian. And I had a lot of energy for entrepreneurship, and so that kind of comes later. But I was working these jobs. I was sort of taking on lots of projects in the evenings, and that was really kind of feeding my entrepreneurial spirit. And eventually, I ended up taking on a role with a high-end corporate dining company, and we had about 400 clients around the country. I ended up becoming the director of nutrition strategy for the company, which is awesome in lots of ways. It was a really fantastic experience, and I was doing, nutrition and food and great tasting food, and it was awesome. But I really had kind of was coming to this whole experience and my journey with some deep rooted issues that I had not really sorted through. And I had, a lot of self esteem issues. I was just like a chronic people pleaser. I was saying yes to everything. I had big ideas for what I wanted in my life. And so I was just kind of a yes person.
So hold on. When is this? Is this like early 2000, late 90s?
Yeah, this was in my early 30s.
Okay.
So yeah, it would have been kind of early 2000s.
Okay, so everyone listening, this is totally normal, by the way. This was the vibe of then. If you watch movies from back then, they make me want to throw things because the girls are always like, oh my God, so fun. Let me be one of the guys. Let me eat a hot dog, drink a beer, be 6 feet tall and 90 pounds. Like super skinny, super gorgeous, super playful, super like, I'm also an EVP at work. And also, like, that was the vibe in that moment of time.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah,
just compassion and like part of type A is you were like, and I was checking all the boxes. I was doing
100%.
what was exactly the cool girl thing to do back then.
Yeah, and I also had a sort of an undiagnosed kind of flying under the radar, fairly severe eating disorder, and that was also what I had never really quite worked out in my early 20s, but it really kind of developed in college. And this, I started to notice that that my eating behaviors were significantly different at certain times in my cycle, and my exercise was much more aggressive and intense at other points in my cycle. And I was just living in a completely disconnected from my body, pushing it really to burnout. And, couple this with just like a very intense job. I was flying all over the country. I was probably on the road 15 days out of the month. And I was also I was this compulsive exerciser. So I was spending my weekends riding 60 miles on my bike, Saturdays, Sundays, and then trying to stay fit during the week. And so it was just, my body was just pushed to its limits. And, and so I found myself really, it really all kind of culminated in this one trip I was taking. We had a very important client. I had about 3 days of meetings with this client and events and things. And I found myself basically in the hotel room, just stressed out, exhausted, so anxious. I didn't know how I was going to show up to this client, let alone manage these events and execute them well. And I basically just shut down. And because my eating disorder was really sort of served as this backdrop, as like the way that I would kind of manage. I was a real severe binge eater, and so I had kind of the most severe binge of my life that one night when I arrived in my hotel room, and it paralyzed me. And basically, I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't leave my hotel room. I had to cancel the events. I had to cancel all my meetings. And this was really kind of a rock bottom for me. And the moment that I knew that I couldn't manage this anymore and that I really needed help. And I had sort of compartmentalized my eating issues. And finally, I realized, well, and this was like a big realization. Like, if I knew what to do here, and I always thought I did, I was a nutritionist, I knew what to do, I knew all the things, and yet I couldn't figure out how to manage my own nutrition, my movement, and was struggling with these emotional issues. And so I knew that I needed to get help. If I knew what to do, I would have been doing it all along. And kind of that surrender moment was really what I needed to finally get the help that I needed.
That word, and I love that you chose the word surrender. We're like, I'm
Mhm.
totally educated. I have everything that technically I'm thinking should have, and the surrender moment, I feel like that's always the moment that changes everything. There's so much power in a surrender like that. And you being like, this is not working, and I love myself so much, even though I know you love yourself exponentially more now than even then. But in that moment, it was you like choosing the next level of love. I love myself so much that I get support. I'm going to literally get help and not pretend that there's any righteousness in me continuing to try to figure it out. I think why it's resonating for me so big is when I think of like my money story and when I hired the
Mm,
first major money mindset mentor, and like I didn't have the money, literally didn't even have the credit to pay her. For those who are like, what'd you do? I asked for a payment plan and advocated for a payment plan, and she said yes. And I um, over maxed out my PayPal credit that was available to make the first thing. But the whole
yeah,
point was, I remember thinking, I don't have money for this. And then thinking, I'm not in a situation to not do this.
exactly. I have
Like,
no other option at this moment.
I
Yeah,
mean, there's an option, but it was no good. It was just the like
right.
this, me doing it on myself got me here, and that's okay. But I deserve more. So I
Yeah.
love how you took us through that whole thing and how you were so smart and courageous and loving towards yourself. So you got help.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I sensed that there was just so much more for me, and that there was just too much on the line for me to not get the help that I needed. And that absolutely, I had issues around worthiness and esteem, but there absolutely was like a thread in me that knew there was absolutely more. And that really is the thread that has continued to really fuel my journey and fuel my business and fuel like my healing process, right? And so I've been very connected to that part of me that just knows, just knows.
everyone, I want you to tune into the part of you that just knows. I think something else that you and I have in common that I love
Mhm.
is I don't think either one of us thinks we're ever going to get to some perfect finish line in our healing or personal growth. I think it's a like continue to bloom, continue to unfold, continue to learn. There's always a next level, like it just keeps getting better.
Mhm.
But like I know you
Mhm.
know that I'm just back from another an intensive with Byron Katie, and it's always fascinating to me, especially in a community of coaches and healers, when people sort of sometimes are just like, why should need ever? And I'm like, what? I can't imagine not finding the next level of self-love, the next like what else is there? And
There's always more excavations and more love to find, right? More worthiness to find. Yeah. Yeah.
that more worth that's it.
Mhm.
That's exactly it. It's like I'll know that I've actually tapped out my worthiness probably when I'm dead. Or if at some point I don't know, but I'm like, we're not there yet. I know that. I know that there's so much more love and appreciation than existed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and yet I'm not like done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and something, I mean, the work that we've done absolutely is just like the how much it constantly comes back to coming, this sense of compassion and willingness to kind of be with ourselves through these really challenging moments when we forget our worthiness, right? And they happen for all of us, right? And so it's like, how do we continue to just keep coming back to that place of knowing and just and keep remembering and keep imprinting and constantly rewiring those brain networks and patterns, right? To keep our thoughts really serving us and in a way that really helps us step into everything we're worthy of, right? And continuing to move that forward.
You said worthy, and we're not getting out of your origin story for lack of better terminology, but we talked about this and another thing we have in common. Like so many people are like, I'm worthy of X amount of money, but not Y amount of money. And you have this gorgeous, slightly supermodel-ish body. She's all tall and leggy and radiant, and you're
Hmm.
worthy of it. And we've talked about how it's, especially in our culture, it's like money and radiant wellness are similar, and that so many people feel worthy of just enough, but don't
Hmm.
necessarily give themselves permission to be like, no, no, it is okay for me to literally shine, to glow, to have more.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really kind of it's sort of reminding me of like a very recent process that I've been in. And here I am as a perimenopausal lady on my own journey, right, navigating through the sometimes chaotic moments. And more recently, I'd say probably in the past 6 months or so, and I had done so much to again, all the things, right, to improve, to really come back into health and really sort of balance myself. I mean, probably there's more to say around that, which we can talk about. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, 6 months ago, well, what the f is this, right? I mean, I've already done all of this work, to really come into optimal health, and then all of a sudden the game is changing, and this is so common for most ladies, ultimately who find themselves in perimenopause, that 7 to 10 year transition before the menopause, and it can really be a mind f, right? Is like, how do I navigate this? But I recognize that where in the past, in terms of like all of that disordered eating history and the over exercise, that like I was punishing my body into, again, that manipulation and control, and that was what really drove me straight to burnout. And that like this new energy of like, no, I have done so much inner work and so much release and letting go, that these changes I was experiencing, low energy, fatigue, exhaustion, energy crashes. I was putting on some weight. My shoulder was like, I had all these joint issues in my shoulder. My mood was tanking, and I'm like, this is not who I have become. Like, these symptoms are not in alignment with the person that like I know I am here on the inside, right? And so so I was like, okay, like, all right, it's on. What do I got to do? And so I really, it wasn't out of aggression. It wasn't out of hate. It was like, no, I deserve to feel amazing. And this is, exactly what I'm guiding other women to, right? Is their deservingness and worthiness of feeling fabulous. And so, okay, like, what do I got to do? And so I basically did the things that I would, guide one of my clients to, assuming like, oh, perimenopause isn't going to happen to me, right? Like, I don't, and of course, sure did. Yeah, and ended up really within, I would say, a month, noticing significant shifts in my overall sense of well-being, and really, I mean, managing those symptoms. So now I'm at a new level of health. I feel even better than I had before. And this is like this radical self-care. It's like, no, this is this is so crucially important. It's like the greatest act of self-love.
Like that's the gift of it. You just reminded me, I didn't think I would, that's a long story, but I ended up reading Prince Harry's book Spare.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I found fascinating was he talked about learning how to fly a helicopter. He was in the military, that was his thing. And he's like, blah, 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 you think you're done flying, and then you get this one more flight course. And basically he's in the helicopter and the flight instructor just kills the engine. So he's in a, he has to learn how to recover the helicopter from basically from crashing, as it just goes dead in the sky. And what I remember taking out of that chapter was, oh no, he thought he was a helicopter pilot, but he became a helicopter pilot when he could bring that thing back to life, like diagnose and bring back to life in the middle of the air while he was in a, flat dead spin. And I thought, oh my God, everything you just said has been an experience I've had in business. Like, totally got it. Everything's under control. And then the game completely changes. And I'm like,
Hmm.
whoa. And it took me a second to find my footing. And I just thought, apparently, nothing would ever change, which is hilarious. Just like you, like,
Hmm.
hello, menopause is what
Hmm.
happens if we're lucky enough to get
Hmm.
through our 40s and 50s. Like, if you're very lucky, this is going to happen. And yet,
Yeah.
it's just listeners, catch on. We're always surprised. We're always surprised. We thought we were the one person who somehow magically, we're not going to have this experience. We're always like shook. And yet, I've never been happier in my business. And now I'm like, yeah, you only think you're a pilot when you can do things, get the plane or the helicopter up and everything is glorious, but you really know how to fly
Hmm.
when you can like be like, oh shit, what just happened? And handle navigating. And I think that's actually relevant. I wanted to talk with you about you shared like your type A, your moment where you were like, okay, I have to get help. And I think that in that it was like complete burnout and even early menopause, and yet, or early perimenopause, and yet you're like, but this is real perimenopause.
Real.
Yes. Will you share about that?
Yeah, yeah. And this is actually increasingly more common among younger women in their 30s, where, there is just so much stress and it comes in all forms. It does not just need to look like a demanding boss and tight deadlines, but the environmental stressors, right? Like chemicals and pesticides and all kinds of issues and inflammation in our gut, right? So common. Or emotional stressors, right? Unprocessed trauma, which was really true for me, and that was stored in my body, causing a lot of inflammation and cortisol release. And then, spiritual stress, right? Like lack of purpose, lack of, and lack of connection to something greater. So there's stress comes in so many different facets. And it's also something like I encourage my clients to really look at, is like, because this is such a holistic approach when it comes to how do we stabilize hormones. It's not just eating the things and, strength training, although those of course are very crucial. But it's really, it's much deeper than that. And so you just, and just to to clarify, all of this stress, right? Like, adrenals are, we're producing all of this cortisol, and that cortisol is inflammatory. And to produce cortisol, like all of those same substrates or nutrients basically to make that cortisol are the same are the same substrates and nutrients we need to produce progesterone and our sex hormones. So if we're producing stress hormones, we're not producing our sex hormones. And so I was really coming into this early perimenopause because I was basically producing no progesterone, but I had pushed my body to such severe burnout. Certainly the overexercise was like a big part of that for me, which I see in a lot of ladies. And so I just want to kind of mention that, but certainly through lifestyle approaches and a lot of deep healing work and release, I was able to really come back into overall health. So it's just something for the younger ladies to look at and to consider, and even those in their 40s that could have actually a very smooth, transition from perimenopause into menopause if they're really thinking about their stress, managing their stress, recognizing the sources of it, and really kind of working to bring those things back into balance.
Okay, I love that. And also, I saw two of your webinars, but you
Mm,
guys, and actually, Allison, tell people how they can find you because I know some of your webinar content and I want to talk about it, and I
yeah.
want them to be able to find you this instant so they can be on your list. So tell them really quick, and then I'll go.
Yeah, they can come to AlisonAcerraNutrition.com to check out my website. There's a way you can set up a complimentary call if you want to talk one-on-one about maybe getting started in a one-on-one coaching container, a mentorship program. And then also there's a way that you can get on my mailing list and also receive a guide on actually on mastering menopause through better digestion, crucial. So that's a plug for the microbiome and better digestion for menopause relief. But yeah, and then there you can submit your email and then get on my mailing list and just hear all the announcements and juicy bits that I got going on.
Y'all watch the webinar. So of course, Allison, your stuff will be in the show notes. So you can just find the show notes.
Yeah.
Thank you to Ashley and my team for doing show notes. Yay. All to say, in the webinar, what blew my mind, and I think of myself as, listeners, I'm sure you're with me on like, we know gut biome. We know that the gut is the second brain. We know that the flora in our gut has lots to do with our mood, our energy, everything. I was blown away. You have this one chart that you show in the webinar
Mm,
that shows like how our hormones, and it looks a bit like roller coaster in
mhm,
menopause. And I was like, oh my God. Just as you've said earlier, or perimenopause for everyone listening. So it's like,
yeah.
okay, if you have a truly balanced hormonal system, so let's pretend a 30-year-old has the ideal balanced hormone system. And I'm like cranky pants because I'm 46 as we record this. And I'm like, I just now feel like I truly mastered my cycle. Meaning knowing like these are the days that I'm in the best mood.
Mhm,
These are the days that I hate everyone everywhere and I'm tired. Like finally, I'm like, God, why didn't I figure out this cycle stuff? And granted, it
mhm,
wasn't popular when we were younger. So all you young people take advantage. When I was a kid, you just had to figure shit out. Ah, okay, that's my complaint. So now my cycle is just starting to, like, I had what felt like PMS sort of in the middle of the cycle. And granted, I just moved to Dallas and moving is highly stressful. So is it
yeah.
perimenopause or is it stress? Is it a combination? I don't know yet. But the cycle chart showed where it's like hormones are up and down and up and down. And I'm like, oh my God, just seeing it gave me such grace and like
Yeah.
the context of like, oh, when I wake up craving carbs,
Mhm.
it's not just in my head. Can you speak to that? And in particular, I wake up craving carbs if I haven't slept enough. Will you speak to that so that people are like, it's like, it's not just LOL a thing. It's like, no, it's a hormonal thing.
Oh, yeah, no, it's absolutely a hormonal thing. And I think it's important to note where, and so thank you for referencing the chart. It's important to note kind of where you might be in that transition phase because there's early perimenopause, there's mid, and then there's late. And early perimenopause is usually characterized by dropping progesterone levels. And then estrogen might actually be fairly stable at this time. But, as those progesterone levels are dropping, we might start to feel more irritable, more anxious, right? Progesterone is a very calming hormone. So under her influence, we are feeling calm, our moods are pretty stable. We sleep really well, right? So if we're losing progesterone, that's going to impact our sleep, right? All of these things, our moods, And then mid perimenopause, we start to see, I mean, progesterone is still continuing to decline, but estrogen levels are like wildly fluctuating, right? And so estrogen impacts nearly every system. I mean, every system in the body, right, has estrogen receptors. And so it's why we start to experience like these achy joints, why we start to, our body composition starts to change. We're gaining more belly fat, right? As estrogen is declining, that's impacting our leptin and ghrelin, our hunger satiety hormones. And so we might notice like, oh my God, I cannot eat enough. I cannot get enough carbohydrates. And so it's directly related to these satiety hormones. Yeah, I mean, so many changes that can really happen. And then of course, late perimenopause, we're really starting to see both estrogen and progesterone really decline until we get to the menopause and our ovaries aren't producing either of them anymore. And that's where we really start to see more hot flashes. We really start to see more of the weight gain, and the symptoms can get much more severe, later on in menopause or perimenopause, excuse me. And so I think that like, this is such a time. I feel like we're being called to lean into this like radical self-care, radical prioritization in ways that women are constantly making sure everyone around them is taken care of and okay. That like we're really being called in a deep way to start looking in the mirror and really taking care of ourselves at this time. And I think like boundary setting, right? Like what's boundary setting have to do with hormone health? Like everything, right? So, something I work with my clients on is like, where are you saying yes when it's time to say no, right? Like we're powerful women, and we can do it all, but like it doesn't mean we should do it all.
Say it again.
We are so powerful beyond measure, right? But like it, and we can do it all. We're super women, but it does not mean that we should do it all.
That part, because it's the patriarchy programming that tells
Mhm.
us we earn love and belonging by doing for others. And also, most of us come from very well-meaning caretaker parents, grandparents, and communities that want us to not be an asshole. And so reward us when we contribute, which makes perfect sense. And yet, it's like so many of us have taken it too far. No doubt we were socialized that way, like no shame. But it's like, wait,
Mhm.
we have even more to give when we fill our cup first. And the way
Mhm.
you described it, it's like, let's do that. Or for those who prefer, it's like putting on, if you're on an airplane and we lose cabin pressure, we put our air mask on first so that we can help our neighbors if need be.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it becomes a really powerful, profound time, I think, in a woman's life to really start to discern what matters, and that's where her energy needs to go, and in for the benefit of everyone, right? Herself, her family, her community, her teams, right? The organization she's working for, wherever it is, in all capacity. Um, and so I think it's an invitation.
I agree. Now I'm going to confuse some people. Ready? So, yes, yes, and yes. And I think many, many people, this is again where our work is so aligned, Allison, think
Mm,
everything you just said, like, yes. And they think they just have to also gain weight and
mm,
feel lower energy. And my understanding of you is like, no, 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 you can prioritize yourself lovingly, all of these boundaries, and get the result of loving your body and not lose weight and then love your body, but like loving your body and having a body composition that you really like. That like the weight gain
mm.
is not just required. And again, like when I talk about boundaries, I love to say boundaries make bank. I think sometimes people think like, up to $100,000 a year or up to $200,000 a year. I'm like,
Yeah,
the boundary is the tool that we're using, but we're not limited by it. It's not this or that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, for one thing, I mean, the medical community has just completely led women astray and had been just not serving women. And so we hear these messages from all over, especially our doctors who don't really know how to manage menopause. who, you come in and you have potentially 50 plus symptoms, right, related to your menopausal journey, and they're not recognizing them. And so then you just get told, well, this is just how it goes. There's nothing you can do about it, right? I mean, there's not even a lifestyle like change that you can make. I mean, it's wild what I think doctors are telling these women. And it really can be incredibly disempowering. And so what I really want to do is, in the work I'm doing, is really trying to empower women to recognize that they absolutely are creators. They absolutely can change their mindsets. They absolutely can take steps to, change the game and change the course. That, suffering through menopause is not a foregone conclusion. And yeah, there are a lot of changes, and it can kind of suck. Absolutely, there's no question there. But I think once we really understand what's happening in our body, and then understanding kind of the root causes of these changes, we really can recognize there's so many strategies. And so what I really am trying to do is empower women to change their mindset, recognize, no, I absolutely have control here, and I can change the course of this.
I love that. It's why I geek out, because just as you said, it goes against so much oppressive socialization to take our
Hmm.
power back and to remember, like, we have agency here.
Hmm.
There's a story that we've been fed about insert XYZ, everybody, how hard you have to work to make money, how hard you have to plan for this, that, another, oops, you just gain weight once you start perimenopause. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's so much room to work with. And one of the things that I love is that you are anchored in and work from a space of love, as I am in my teachings. And so it's so subversive. It's like we can have what we want, but first we get to love what we have.
Hmm.
I think it starts with acceptance, and then we
Hmm.
move it into appreciation. And when
Hmm.
we're in sincere appreciation, we sort of don't give a shit. We're like, this is great. And just when you think it can't get better, it has to. It's like
Hmm. And it
constantly.
does, yeah.
I think we were taught the opposite. I know, like, my physical journey, it used to be like, when I get skinny, then I'll be happy. When I
Hmm.
have money, then I'll be happy. And I'm very grateful. And we know I don't use that word a lot, but it's like, the more I find the happiness where I am, the more, quote, those things that I think I want are walking towards me or next to me. And I'm like, oh,
Hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah, we absolutely have to get into belief and a sense of, right, feeling we have what it is we want. We already have it. And so gratitude is such an incredible tool, right, to help us get to that feeling state, right? And then from that place, we can really start to manifest.
so here's my question, because it's true for me with all of my clients, private and in group. Everyone's like, yeah, yeah, totally love that, Serena. Show me how to make more money right now. Do your clients, are they also like generally, and we know I love my clients, including you, but like I love my clients, so it's not a problem. But do you
Mm.
find that your clients are like, I need to eat less and move more? Is that like a common?
Oh my God, that statement right there really effed with me big time, and it is effing with women big time. Because just because there those changes in estrogen I was mentioning really contribute to, just to kind of geek out for a sec, but like we become more naturally insulin resistant as we're kind of moving towards menopause. And so this is where we start to see an accumulation of visceral fat around the belly, right? All of a sudden, the weight that maybe we carried in our hips and thighs is kind of all of a sudden moving. And it's like, what is this? And that's actually that dangerous inflammatory, that's really where we have to be concerned in terms of like how it contributes to heart disease and all kinds of other chronic diseases. And that belly fat is actually not really that responsive to calories in, calories out, right? I mean, it does matter, but there's all of these underlying factors that determine how much we need to eat, right? That we cannot necessarily measure. Like, how much muscle mass are we carrying, right? Like, what is the state of our, how insulin resistant are we? What kind of stress are we carrying, right? These are all the things that are really hard to measure that are absolutely predicting our ability to, maintain a weight that feels good, a body composition that feels good, our strength, our muscle mass. And And so it's like, in fact, most of the women that I'm working with are not eating enough. And so it's like, they're like, wait, you want me to actually eat more and move less, like do less yeah, I do. I want you to do less cardio and I probably want you to eat a little bit more. We got to think about your macros and the composition, right? That is all very important. How, what kind of movement do you want to prioritize right now? So all these things. But again, once you really understand what's actually happening is when you have a chance to really, get those breakthroughs.
All right, you just blew my mind. I just saw the parallels immediately screaming. It sounds like very often your clients are doing punitive energy exercise. They may tell you otherwise, but when you really, both of you look into it, it's like, that's coming from a punitive place and or
Mhm.
restrictive eating. Again, a little bit of a punitive energy, which is part of where when you're like, okay, I need you to eat more and maybe not more pizza all day, but like we're going to watch the macros, but like eat more. It's the opposite. Listeners, stay with me. It's the opposite of punitive, restrictive, withholding, denying. It's being
Yeah.
in abundance. It's being healthy, not I have to do this and then I get to health. It's like so much of the work is
Mhm.
you're helping them be where inevitably they go. And the parallel that made me blow my mind is I'm like, oh my God, before they hire me, so often my clients are restrictive underspending
Mhm.
and they tell you they're overspending and I don't trust myself with money or I just buy all the wrong things. And I'm like, actually, they're restrictive and underspending. And why that matters is they're being someone who's not good with money instead of being someone who's ultimately wealthy. And I'm newly obsessed with that word again, since wealth doesn't have a number.
Yeah.
I think it's, indicative like health. It's not a exact anything. It's a state. And some people are wealthy and their household income is 75,000 US a year. And maybe it depends on where they live and but like, that's the point. There's never a set of numbers that one can check all the boxes and declare themselves healthy,
Mhm.
wealthy. It's a state of being. And it's not
Mhm.
what we say, it's how we feel. And I
Mhm.
just love, you're like, yeah, you often they're under eating. And I'm like, often they're underspending when they get in the boom boom room. I'm like, what is this? This is restriction. This is fear. This is I'll never make more money. This is what will people think? And that is an entirely different energy than I trust myself. I trust life. I trust this. I have agency.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's like if when we start to change those thoughts, and you do so much of this mindset work, right? Like I think we both do in our work. It's like, what are those thoughts that we need to really be thinking to feel a sense of empowerment and control and inspiration and freedom and positivity that are going to lead us to continue to show up in the way that's going to get us our results. And so when we start off from this scarcity mindset, right, like it just, I mean, how does that feel in the body, right? This menopause thing is hopeless, right? I'm hopeless. I can't do anything about it. And it's so disempowering. And then so we don't actually step up for ourselves in the way that really is going to help us break through and start to step up to these really incredible behaviors that are going to support our health and our longevity and our vibrance.
All right, Allison, you just killed it. I'm going to repeat it. I'm sure other people also it resonated when they heard you say it. We want to step up for ourselves, step up to ourselves, like step up for ourselves. Like that is what we're talking about. That is the invitation here. It's like showing up for self, step up for yourself. So I'm going to end this episode by saying, and I'll ask you next, I'm like, listen, if you want to step up into your wealth and trusting yourself with wealth, get your ass in the boom boom room, serenahicks.com. It's not hard. That's it. See you there. Um, this is actually going to come out before we begin, but I'm doing a whole love, trust, money, like summer school session. And it is a part of the Boom Boom Room. And we start on June 20th, 2024. If you're listening to this afterwards, you'll find it in your client portal. Be cool, no problem. But if you're listening to this before, get in now because a 6-month timeline on the Boom Boom Room doesn't start until June 20th, which means this is all bonus time. Come get
Right.
your bonus time. Start June 20th. Allison, tell everyone how they can step up to themselves with you. And of course, all your info's in the show notes, but tell them again.
Yeah, well, I would say get on my mailing list, and you'll get constantly lots of juicy bits. I really try and offer information that you're not finding out there on the webs, that is well researched, and not just sort of the usual kind of strategies. So I really want you to feel like you're learning, you're really kind of building an awareness and a sense of empowerment. And I would say on your, then come to my sessions. And then if you're really ready, I mean, we can do some really beautiful work in a one-on-one container. So that, I think, is where it's at, and that's the ultimate step up, to get you exactly where you want to go. And you have your whole life ahead of you to really, with this strong foundation of health in this new phase of your life.
Oh my God, I could think of nothing else except for say, everyone step up with love. That's the vibe. That's
Yeah.
what we're doing. Alison, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Serena. This was so fun.
Bye, everyone. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you loved it, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a great review. If you didn't, okie dokes. I still love you. I still mean it. If you'd like to work together, you can find me at serenahicks.com. Also, any and all of my social profiles, click the link in profile and you'll find information about my 6-month group program. It is my signature 6-month program. It's $3,000 for 6 months of access. It's called the Boom Boom Room, specifically because we will take your current concepts about you and money and we will make them go boom. Also bloom, but it's fun to say boom, and it's fun to say Boom Boom Room. Love you, mean it. See you on the internet. Bye.